So you want a job in AI, you don't have a degree, and you're hearing two competing narratives. One says you absolutely need a degree, the whole field is PhDs. The other says degrees are dead, just build projects and you'll be fine. I've coached hundreds of people into AI and ML roles, and I can tell you both of these opinions are wrong if you take them at face value. Today we're getting to the truth of whether or not you need a degree for AI jobs. Let's start with the folks saying you don't need a degree at all, because they have a point. Over the last few years, a bunch of big companies have been very vocal about their reduction of degree requirements. IBM went from asking for a 4-year degree on something like 95% of its openings in 2017 to under half of them by 2021. CNBC reported that about 1 in 3 companies have taken education requirements off their salaried postings altogether. And PwC dug through something like 1 billion job ads for their 2025 AI jobs barometer and found the share of AI exposed jobs, which includes a lot of roles in the field, asking for a degree has been falling year after year. So the short, technically correct answer is, yeah, for most AI jobs a degree is preferred, but it's not technically required. And the skills first hiring trend is legit for AI jobs. But do you technically need a degree is kind of the wrong question. The actually important question is how much degrees matter for your job search. And that depends entirely on what kind of AI job you're going for. Because an AI job isn't one thing, and having a degree matters way more for some roles than others. So let me sort the field kind of by how degree-oriented it actually is. I bucket it into roughly 3 groups. First, research. Research scientists, like the people inventing new methods at the top labs, these guys have PhDs. One report showed that more than 90% of ML research scientists have a PhD. So if that's your goal, unless you are an incredible genius, you gotta go to school. There's just no way around it. The next level down would be applied AI engineering. These jobs involve building on top of models that already exist with prompting, RAG, and agents, and getting the product into production. Sean Wang, who popularized the term AI engineer, pointed out that there's not a PhD in sight for a lot of this work, but the postings don't always reflect that. A report found more than 40% of AI engineer listings still ask for a master's and over 20% want a PhD. That's similar for machine learning engineer roles. So the written requirements are still fairly high, but not impossible by any means. Finally, there's AI automation. This involves things like wiring LLM APIs into tools like Zapier and N8N to automate business stuff. Unsurprisingly, this is the least credential-oriented of the bunch, and there are usually not any degree requirements, especially since these jobs are often freelance and entrepreneurial. So assuming you're not going for research positions, the news that companies are lowering degree requirements for applied roles sounds hopeful, but there's a catch, which we need to go into in just a minute. No matter which of these roles you're going for though, a big part of the actual job these days is dealing with code that AI wrote. In my day job as an ML scientist, I spend a lot of time writing code with AI assistants, but even more time reviewing AI-generated code. AI is great for speed, but man, it can write a lot at one time. A tool for doing this well is today's sponsor, CodeRabbit. CodeRabbit is a platform for AI code reviews that reads through the entire pull request, even if it's huge, has deep context over your entire code base, flags the problems, and can suggest solutions you can apply automatically in a single click. A super cool new feature is how it's organizing PRs. Now instead of just manually scrolling through potentially hundreds of rows, which might be making changes to a bunch of different stuff like the data model, backend, or random bug, everything all at once. It organizes the PR into sections that group changes together so you don't have to context switch every few lines. It also learns your standards as you go, so the reviews get better the more you use it. If this sounds useful for your workflow, check it out at the link below. Now back to getting hired without that degree, because it's not as obvious as it might sound. Research by Harvard Business School tracked over 11,000 roles before and after firms removed their degree requirements. The number of people they actually hired without a bachelor's went up by fewer than 1 in 700 hires across the whole economy. And around 45% of firms changed the wording with no difference in who they actually ended up hiring. So a lot of the "we've dropped degree requirement" stuff is mostly marketing, which means that if you want to get a job in AI right now, you're probably not going to be able to do it without anything to back up your experience. The natural thing most people think next is a bootcamp, but do those actually work? They can, with some caveats. The audited numbers from bootcamps that report their data put placement rates around 79% within 6 months, at about $70,000 starting pay against roughly $14,000 in tuition, which sounds pretty good. But that data includes any kind of employment, not necessarily full-time jobs in the field you were training in, and the placement rates are lower once that's accounted for. Some schools even settled lawsuits over inflated placement numbers. Other boot camps with stronger numbers only have strong numbers because they only count graduates who are already eligible and job qualified, which leaves a lot of enrolled people out of the math entirely. Boot camps do have some advantages though. If you need a structured path and accountability, they can be a good way to learn the foundational skills, but don't assume they'll replace a degree. So if the credential from a boot camp doesn't go very far, the next best thing might be self-study and developing a strong portfolio. Surprisingly, I actually think this can be a better investment, but only if you approach it in a very specific way. Follow along tutorial projects will not help you get hired beyond the skills you learn while you're doing it. Sorry. What does help is building something real. I have an entire video breaking down projects that actually demonstrate professional skills, which I'll link below. But the short version is, if you scope, build, and deploy a real solution for real users, this is probably the strongest evidence a no-degree candidate can have. This means making an app and putting it in the App Store, or doing a project to help a nonprofit or maybe a friend's business. Even something for a hobby group that you put on Reddit can be great as long as you have real users. By the way, if this video has been helpful, make sure to subscribe. I put out videos on tech careers every week, but on its own, even a great portfolio usually won't get you hired. And the reason is obvious, but kind of sad. Most of the time, nobody hiring ever even sees it. If you just apply to jobs on LinkedIn, you're almost definitely going to get ghosted. And this is because of everyone's favorite thing, automated resume screeners. To deal with the huge number of applications they get for open roles, recruiters will configure their screening system with filter questions like, does this candidate have a bachelor's degree? Yes or no? A Harvard survey found 88% of employers admit that qualified people get screened out for not matching the exact criteria on the posting. That becomes a filter your beautiful projects can never make it past. But all hope is not lost, because there is another way. Instead of firing applications into the void, you need another way to be seen. And the answer to this is actually really simple. Just reach out to the recruiter or hiring manager directly, or find relevant people to connect with online or in person who can help you with referrals. Then send them thoughtful, well thought out messages beyond just asking for a referral. For example, maybe you can reference something from their technical blog, or ask a question about a paper that they published. Demonstrate that you put in the time to learn about and compliment their work, and you're much more likely to get a response. I have a whole video breaking down how to do this, which I'll link below. Now, you might be listening to this and thinking this all sounds a little bleak. You might be questioning whether it's worth it to just get a master's and be done with it. I don't think the answer is that simple though. Master's degrees cost money, time, and opportunity cost if you leave your job to study. And academia moves slowly, so given the pace of change right now in AI, it might be a little bit of a bad time to spend 2 years learning math fundamentals again. So I'm sorry to say that there's no obvious choice here. Either path has its pros, cons, and challenges, but they're also both doable with the right approach. If you want a breakdown of the best way to learn for your specific situation, I made a full video on exactly that. Check it out up next.